Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I'm back with another beautiful reel that Scott has sent me. This one is a Daiwa D1300. I really like these. Don't like this one. It's really grease choked. But you know what? We're going to take care of that today. We're going to show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, and how to give it a second chance to go fishing again. You know, Scott's found an awful lot of nice reels out in the Los Angeles area at various flea markets. This is one of them. And if you have one, you're going to see how to service it. If you don't have one, well, you're going to learn a little bit about it. Maybe you're going to find yourself wanting one. It's a single ball bearing reel. And I'm going to start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. I just removed that cap because sometimes Daiwa has a handle that goes through the main gear and they hide a screw here. So you always want to check, particularly the older Daiwas, to make sure that you have a handle that you can remove by turning in a clockwise manner. If it's a left-handed setup, if it's a right-handed setup, it's going to be reverse. When I take my exterior pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you subscribe to my channel, well, thank you if you have. And if you're considering it, please do that. You're going to learn a lot about fishing reels. You're going to learn about the manufacturers. You're going to learn a little bit about fishing reel history. And you're going to see how reels come together or come apart and how to service them to keep them fishing for a long time to come. The whole idea with this channel is to teach you to do it yourself. The reason for that is, well, I want to keep these reels running. I want to give them a second chance, and that's why the program and the channel is called Second Chance Tackle. I took the 3 screws off. The other thing I want to do with off is I want to set that anti-reverse override to off so that I don't have the backstop. The reason I do that is I don't want to take a main gear out or a case off and risk having a piece spring out because it's stuck in the main gear assembly. 3 screws come out. We should be able to remove the case. This is a single ball bearing reel, and it's quite a common setup. And as I said, grease choked. Well, the 2 items that you can run with on these is either going to be grease choked or it's going to have 0 grease in it. And this one looks like it might be the latter case here, where you don't have a lot of grease in it. This is kind of a traditional setup on a fishing reel that was Japanese made in the 1980s. And these are very dependable reels. Overall, they're going to last a long time. I just did a video on the Garcia 3800. It was when Mitchell was bankrupt. Garcia was still having reels made. Garcia was a distributor. They went to Japan and had some reels made, and the setup was very similar to this. So we'll show you how to service this. You want to take that bushing off. That's a plastic bushing. Sometimes these become a little stubborn, and maybe that's even why the performance is what it is. It seems like it's kind of pushed onto there pretty good. I'm just going to use a screwdriver to gently pull that up and off. That gets compressed over time. And you're just going to have to kind of work with it. It will come off. Okay, one last turn. There we go. It's off. And take a picture of these pieces and parts so that you can identify how they go in the assembly. Now this one is just a completely round bushing, so you don't have to worry about that. Some of the case bushings that you're going to find will have tabs in them, and if they have tabs in them, you need to make sure that the tabs merge into the side case. Well, you saw that we pulled everything out. We pulled out the trail arm, and we pulled out the main gear, and we're going to go clean that up. I'm going to take some penetrating oil. I'm going to spray the back of the main gear. What we have on this main gear is all the dried grease. So remember I said it can be one of 2 things. It can be either grease choked or lacking grease. Well, here's where all the grease went. And look at that. It's just shellac that's coming up in chunks as opposed to coming up in greasy globs or whatever, right? So that's all of that stuff just contributes to poor performance. There's no slip and slide left in that. It's more like concrete. And well, if you have that kind of situation, it's just going to force you to work harder to reel the wheel. I'm using the flat blade of a screwdriver as a gentle scraper now. There's nothing that interacts with the back of this, but it is holding that old grease, and you want to get that old grease out of there so that it doesn't chip off and become problematic later on by jamming a gear. Now go ahead and do all of that. Until you get it all off, and then use that paper towel or another kind of soft thing to make sure that you have the nice clean gear shaft and that you don't have any remnants left of the greases. I'm going to use a hard brush now, and I'm going to pull through the channels of the teeth of that gear. I'm going to land it on my paper towel. That's going to make sure that I don't have any residuals laying on my bench for the next time that the next project that I get on my bench, and I don't want to transfer one issue to another. Well, that's interesting. I just picked up and I found a piece of broken line right here. So that can be another cause of why this reel was sluggish. It was probably trying to fight getting that piece of broken line and running around it. Alright, that main gear is nice and clean. These pieces and parts can go into part tray. Now we're going to take our axle shaft off. The axle shaft is held in place by a screw on the bottom. Take a picture here. Notice which way this cross wind block goes. The screw for the axle shaft is on the right hand side. The post for the arm is on the left hand side. So easy to put that on backwards. What's backwards? Well, you can come in and put it in like that. If you put it in like that, your reel's not going to work. And you're going to wonder why it's tight, and you're going to send me a note to my email saying, why is that tight? It wasn't a problem before I started, and it's a problem now. Okay, well, that leads me to tell you that if you do have a question on a fishing reel, and maybe you're working on one, and maybe you have an issue with that reel, go ahead and leave a question in the comments section. It doesn't have to be on this reel. Maybe you want to know more about this reel too. That's fine. But if you have a question, leave it in the comments section. I will try and help you out if I can. All right, well, one of the things we noted was that we have a lot of shellacked grease. So I'm going to use a very fine steel wool, a 4-0 steel wool. It's a polishing steel wool. I'm going to use that to clean the shaft to make sure that it rides nice and smooth. Now we're going to go up top and we're going to take the rotor off. What I like to do with the rotor, I like to spray the joints where the bail is going to work and work that in. You do not need to remove that bail unless that bail is not working. I have a little 12mm tool here, and I'm just trying to figure out which way does it turn. Sometimes Daiwa reverse threads the nut. In this case they did not. That nut comes off counterclockwise. We have the star adjuster. We have a group of drags inside this reel, so we're going to show you how to service that. We have the spool sleeve that goes off to the side. I'm not going to put that into my parts tray. I'm going to remove the rotor now, and underneath you're going to see a traditional setup for an older non-instant anti-reverse reel. So we have a eccentric collar here with a spring that goes into an assembly on that anti-reverse dog. Remember, we took that in the off position. Let's show you how it works in the on position. So you're reeling away, there's no problem. When you go to return, back it off, it's going to pull that anti-reverse dog into the collar. So you're spinning freely, and then you'll see it comes in. That's how this setup works. So I'm going to put that into the off position. Usually you don't need to remove the anti-reverse dog to get at the rest of the assembly. You do need to remove the click ratchet and that spring assembly. And this is the ball bearing under here, and we're going to work to get those 2 screws out of there for the collar so that we can remove the rest of the assembly. This is a good place to tell you to take a picture. Lots of things can happen here, and well, one of them could be, for example, this spring which controls the override for your anti-reverse dog. Well, it may just blow off, and if it blows off, you're going to be sitting there trying to figure out, how do I reinstall that? Well, without the picture, you may have to guess. I think we're going to try and take this off here, only because I don't see a lot of room. Trying to find the right screwdriver, that would help. All right. I don't see a lot of room to get that last screw out of that collar there, so it doesn't hurt to take this off, or at least move it up the channel here so that you have the room. Now, you don't normally need to take this piece off, but in this case it's not. It's blocking that collar, so we're going to go ahead and do that. All right. Remember, pictures. In this case, it's kind of hard to miss that one because it has that extension up for that eccentric spring. All right. I took the 1 screw out. I wanted to leave that on my desk while I took the other one out. I want to make sure they're the same screw. The other pieces you can leave in place here. This is a ramp for the bail trip. That doesn't need to come off. And I know a lot of times folks get ambitious when they start working on fishing reels, and they want to do too much. They want to take every piece and part off and clean it. Well, that's admirable, but not necessary, and sometimes it leads to trouble. Take those 2 screws and the collar. Now we can remove the top end of this. Notice that there's a spacer washer. Then there's the bearing. Spin the bearing while you have it on there. Make sure it's working fine. Right, oil bearing, so I'm just going to soak that in oil. Set that off to the side. And we're going to do the same thing here that we did on that main gear. We're going to go back and get the hard brush. We're going to work it through the channels of the teeth of this pinion gear, and we're going to make sure that they're nice and clean so that when they mesh with the main gear, they perform flawlessly as designed. I'm using a pick because some of this grease is stuck. We had talked about this being grease choked. Kind of feels that way, so we're just going to run it through there, make sure that I pick all of that out. Once you do that, you can take your fishing reel grease. I use Penn Precision Reel Grease. I'm impartial to the type or manufacturer of the grease, but you do need to use fishing reel grease. Don't go using automotive greases and household greases and other things. They just won't provide the protection that a grease that's been designed for fishing reels will do. Okay, that goes on. We can do a little bit of grease onto where that bearing is going to sit. That'll help the inner race. And we have the spacer. And then we can just go ahead and put that right back into the assembly. We want to grab the collar next. Want to line your collar up. A little collar screw, which I always have fun with. Me and the little screws, well, we don't get along very well. Especially getting them started on a floating piece like this. There we go. I think we got that one. And there's one more little one going on below. I'll take care of that. Sometimes, if you like, put a little bit of grease onto your screwdriver. That will help hold the screw as you go back in. Right, so we've put the, I don't think I'm lined up with the hole. That's why we don't play well. Now I'm going to use that pick to center that. Try this again. If you have any questions about what you're doing, stop, look at the pictures, take a breath, go get a cup of coffee or something. Don't just keep plowing on in the hopes that maybe you will get it right. as hopes are often misfounded. All right, here's our assembly. We have that anti-reverse dog with that little catch for the spring clip. We have the screw. In this case, you kind of have to put the screw in there because there's no stud for it to ride on. Okay, I got that started. I noticed that that was coming loose here. The little metal shield that the spring is going to ride on. And now we can go ahead and tighten that down. Before I tighten it all the way, I'm going to put a drop of oil in here, just to let it ride a little bit easier. And there is a double shoulder on this screw, so you do have to make certain that you don't trap the dog, but rather that you have that shoulder set properly. Go ahead and use your finger. We've got this in override mode right now, but make sure that it's moving freely as you do that. Go ahead and grab that click ratchet and the eccentric spring then. That goes next. And that spring has got to go through the slot in that dog. Give it a ride, turn it back, and we're functioning the way we should. All right, we've serviced the bail. We can go ahead and put the bail back on. The rotor and bail. And we can go ahead in our parts tray, find that nut, and tighten all of that down. Some reels have cases where the side plate goes up under the rotor, so you need to know which goes where before you can go ahead and reinstall. We've greased our pinion gear. We can put a little bit of grease onto the bushing. They're kind of self-lubricating, but if you want, you can go ahead and get the inside where that main gear is going to ride. We'll take advantage of the main gear as well to, well, we're going to put it on both sides so we can spread some grease there too. When you do the main gear, you want to make sure that you get the grease in the teeth. Don't put too much on. It's just going to be like what happened when we opened this reel up. You're going to be scraping it off the inside at some point. It's going to be thrown off by centrifugal force. So don't go crazy just putting all of that grease in there. Once you do that, we can go ahead and put the main gear in. Make sure that it's nice and meshed with the pinion gear. And take your axle shaft now and your crosswind block. Remember what we said, left side is where this pin is going. You can get some grease on that little stud on the back there that's going to ride inside the groove in the side case. It's not inside the groove in the side case. It's not going to be square or riding very well. Light coat of grease onto the shaft. Bring that down. And then mesh it in. This may be a little difficult to see. I'm missing the mesh, but mesh it in so that it seats into that carrier and that you have the position for the hole. Next up is the tie-down screw for that. And we're getting close to making it work the way it should work, right? Take your grease and get a little bit of grease onto your face of your reel. We're going to get our side plate arm here. Seat that properly. Now usually you have a little washer that holds all of that on. I didn't see that washer come out. We're going to just think that maybe that's because that bushing is a little proud there, and it's going to ride like that. Give it a spin. Make sure that you have all of the clearances, which we do. And then go ahead and put that side plate cover on. I always like it when I hear a nice snap to a cover. Give it a spin, make sure that it's working the way it should. And then go ahead and get the 3 screws that belong in the side plate. Now this reel is never going to spin like a modern day 10-ball bearing reel because it's got those plastic bushings on the side. That doesn't mean it's a bad reel. It's a solidly constructed reel that's going to last a long time. Doesn't have a lot of moving parts, requires minimal service, and as a result it's going to be dependable. It's just not going to be as smooth as a 10-ball bearing Daiwa Regal or something like that by today's standards. Doesn't mean it's a bad reel. Okay, put that back on. I'll throw the handle on. We'll go over and service the spool. This goes on by turning in a counterclockwise manner. There you go. What a difference between the two. On the spool, we have drag washers inside the spool. They're held in place by a retention ring. Go ahead and get a small pick or get a small micro screwdriver or get something that you can help pull that retention ring out with. And pull your drag stack out. Notice the orientation where they go. So this one has a red washer below. And we're going to start by cleaning out the cavity for that. Once we do that, we're going to take the spool shaft, we're going to put that back in because it's easier to suit your drag washers like that. Now, you have the option on these. This one's usually a hard washer, but it's got a little bit of flexibility to it, so I'm going to go put that back in with some dry grease on it. Then you're going to notice that you have a washer that has a D shape, so find the flat side of the stud from this one. Go ahead and put that on. Now the next 2 washers are Teflon. They're non-permeable. You do not need to do anything with a non-permeable drag washer. They're also self-lubricating. The middle washer in the stack is called an eared washer. It goes in the slots of the spool just like that. Second of the Teflon washers. Last of the D-shaped washers then. And usually one side's shiny and the other one's kind of a little dull. The shiny side goes up. It's not going to matter too much, but one, I guess it's for cosmetic purposes inside this. Take that clip, find the inset in the spool, that little groove. Sometimes they're easier to get in than others. Sometimes that spring has got a lot of tension on it. It doesn't do anything for the reel other than, oh, drop that out again. The only thing it will do for that spool is hold it in the drag stack. Alright, that's going to come off now. One of the things you might want to do, this is a little push button release. So you might want to just put a drop of oil in there to help it. It's got a spring, but sometimes some dirt knot lodges in there. And that's it. That's your Daiwa D1300 fishing reel. It's got a second chance. It's ready to go fishing again. I hope you've enjoyed that. To everybody who's been watching, again, if you have not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. If you have subscribed, thank you for your sub and for watching. To all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching, and have a great day fishing. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you.